What's up, guys? It is the Friday, March 19th edition of the MMA Junkie Twitter Mailbag. Kevin Holland versus Derek Brunson is tomorrow night. Got a bunch of questions to answer about the main event and everything else going on in the MMA world, so let's jump into it. All right, guys, question number one comes from Matt at Matt82113630. You think Brunson can pull it off? I don't know if he will, but I certainly think he could. And I was very surprised when I went and looked at the lines this morning and saw that Kevin Holland was approaching a 2-1 favorite. To me, sure, Kevin's got the hot hand right now. He's coming out of a MMA Junkie 2020 Fighter of the Year, calendar year. So a lot of steam is behind Kevin Holland. He's got the momentum. He's a rising star, not only in middleweight, but just in the UFC and in MMA in general. But with that being said, this is very reminiscent, in my opinion, of the disrespect that Derek Brunson received before his last fight against Edmund Shabazian. People thought Shabazian was going to be the next big thing, and maybe he still will be. But Derek Brunson put a screeching halt to that for the time being. He went out there and showed why he's been a very underappreciated, under the radar, good fighter for all these years. And I don't think that Kevin Holland is going to have an easy outing by any means of the imagination on Saturday. I'm obviously a big Kevin fan. I have the utmost respect for him. I think he's entertaining on the mic, entertaining in the cage. But Derek Brunson's wrestling is legitimate. He's been in these big fights before. He's been in UFC main events before. So to me, I think this is a very close fight stylistically. I don't think it's the best matchup for Kevin, but the guy's got power in his hands. So to answer your question, yes, Derek Brunson could win. Will he? That remains to be seen. Nicholas Hawkins at UnquietSilver11. What's next for the winner of the main event? And a lot of times when I answer these questions, the guys are on kind of different levels, and different momentum builds, whatever. But right now, I feel like Brunson and Holland, at least when it comes to the division, are kind of at a similar place. Like a win will get them to the same spot. So for me, with Robert Whittaker, in my opinion, the clear-cut number one contender who has an opportunity to punch his ticket to fight Israel Adesanya in a rematch, should he beat Kelvin Gastelum on April 17th. I think it's kind of a mini tournament here. I would like to see the winner of Holland versus Brunson fight the winner of Vettori versus Darren Till, which is scheduled for UFC on ABC 2 on April 10th. So for me, middleweight, the guys kind of need to get a little bit of momentum behind them. And I think that those two fights will do just that, clear out the title picture and get somebody else up in the rankings that can fight the winner of Adesanya and Whittaker, should Whittaker get through Gastelum. Next question from Joey at 16 Joey Thomas. Tell me your lock picks this week, Nolan. We got Yanez, Holland to win by finish, and JP Bays winning. I'm not the guy this year to go with fight picks. I have not been doing well after a very strong first 2 years in the MMA Junkie staff pick, so take this with a grain of salt, but I do like your pick of Adrian Yanez. I think Gustavo Lopez is a tough test, but Yanez has looked on fire. Great striking, great combinations. As for other fighters on the card, I think Tai Tuivasa, it's heavyweight. He's fighting a newcomer, Harry Hunsucker, but I do like him in that slot. I feel like he's going to have maybe a little bit easier of a time with somebody his size versus Stefan Struve, who was the last guy he fought. And I think the other one is Montel Jackson on the undercard. I mean, he's got newcomer Jesse Strader, who has not been very active and has only had a few career fights. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I've seen Jesse fight a few times. I think he's very fun. He could make this into a brawl, but I'm really high on Jackson as a prospect that is still, despite his experience, very green. All right, this week's final question coming at us from Ryan Frederick. With Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal no longer being the front runners, who would be your choices to coach the Ultimate Fighter? That's a great question. I think, like many other people, I was caught off guard by the UFC 261 announcement last week that Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal would be rematching in front of a full capacity crowd in Jacksonville, Florida. Now that that's booked, the UFC does need to pivot. They need to find new coaches for the Ultimate Fighter. And there's two names that come to mind. And looking at the different divisions, I don't think there are a lot of options. But what about TJ Dillashaw versus Uriah Faber? I know this idea had been floated a bunch of times before, but that's one that really interests me. I think the UFC was interested in that fight at some point in recent weeks. I think it was something that was brought up, and I'd be interested to see if they would revisit it for the show, or if they'd want TJ to just get in there and fight. Maybe Kevin Holland versus Darren Till could be something that would be entertaining if the cards played out certain ways. Colby Covington, I think, is a big asset for them that could be an Ultimate Fighter coach. Derek Lewis, if he had the right foil. But for me, Dillashaw versus Faber seems like the most obvious option at this point in time. All right, guys, that does it for this edition of the MMA Junkie Twitter mailbag. But tomorrow night, we will have you guys covered from pre-fight to post-fight, first prelim to the main event. So keep it locked to MMA Junkie and enjoy the fights.